Season 1, Episode 8 of the AusCannaPodcast. I'm your host, Christina McMullen, and on today's episode, I'm sitting down with someone I have a bit of a fangirl crush on. When I tell you I did a happy dance similar to Rocky's running up the stairs scene when they agreed to come on, that's no lie, because it's not every day you get to pick the brain of a multi-award-winning cannabis grower. I do apologize, as there are a few times when we talk over each other slightly due to the delay in our internet connections. Let's get started with some rapid fire questions with the one and only Miss Genevieve Newton, head grower of Stewart Farms. I like to start every episode with a little bit of rapid fire questions. So are you ready?
I am. I'm as ready as I can be.
Okay, here we go. Are you a morning person or a night owl?
I'm definitely a morning person. I'm an annoying morning person.
Me too. Me too. What's your favorite food?
Oh, pizza and ice cream.
Are you a planner or do you prefer to be spontaneous?
Um, it's been a blessing and curse my whole life, but I am very impulsive, spontaneous, free bird type person for sure.
If you could learn any new skill overnight, what would it be?
Oh, I always thought it'd be really cool to learn how to make like swords and knives and what is that, blacksmithing?
I think that's blacksmithing. Yeah. That's awesome,
Yeah.
though. That is
Yeah,
awesome.
I don't know. It'd be a cool skill to just be like pull out at parties.
Hell
Made
yeah, it
this
would.
knife.
Hell yeah, it would. Um, are you a coffee person or a tea person?
Oh, definitely coffee. Although it's not as happy with me all the time. And so my friend Katrina has gotten me more on the tea. So I'm like a half calf girl now.
Okay. All right.
I do the half calf coffee and tea. Yeah.
I like it. What's your go-to music you listen to when tending your plants?
Oh man, I listen to a lot of hardcore rap.
I'm gonna say me too, but I don't know. I like to listen to Tupac like back, but I don't know if I would
Yeah,
call
old
that
school
hardcore.
90s rap.
Yeah.
90s rap about Eminem, like the really inappropriate stuff that you don't hear anymore. The good stuff.
Yeah, I'm not gonna lie. I might walk around my house with a watering can singing Wonder Why They Call You Bitch, like toe tapping along. It's kind of my jam.
Yeah. It's about
Uh,
the beats, right? That's what the plants feel is the beat. So,
it is for sure. To tie with that question, what's your go-to karaoke song?
oh wow. Fun fact, I used to host karaoke.
No way.
Yeah, so if we ever hang out, we should definitely do a duet. But I used to sing karaoke every single time by Kid Rock. Picture. That was it. Kid
Oh,
Rock
okay,
and
yeah.
Girl.
Yeah.
Yeah, all the time.
I was gonna put you on the spot and make you sing, but I won't do that to you. I won't do that to you. It was tempting though, like the gut instinct was like, ooh, ooh, make her sing. But no, we're gonna save that for a duet because I think that'll be tune in later.
It'd be
uh,
special.
yeah, exactly. Excuse me. What's the best piece of advice you've ever received?
Oh wow. Right away. Keep it simple. All areas of life.
I like it.
Keep it simple, stupid, actually. The KISS
Yeah,
acronym.
yeah,
Yeah.
exactly.
That lives in my head. Or do not engage.
Mm,
These
that's a
are
good
the two
one.
things I pass on. Yeah.
Yeah, that's a good one. That's a really good one. How many marshmallows can you fit in your mouth?
I've actually always had trouble with my teeth because of my small mouth, so probably four.
I like it because yeah, I have a small mouth too, and I fail like epically at that. Like for reals, I'm with you. I'm
No,
like
I'd try
maybe 4 or 5.
it.
It's sad days.
Yeah.
I'm no good at it. So you're not alone.
Maybe
You're
we
not
can do
alone.
that after karaoke next time. Yeah. We'll
We're
see
gonna
who
have an
can fit more
adventurous.
marshmallows.
So we're just about to say we're gonna have an adventurous night out. That's for sure.
Yeah.
Um,
Baked. We'll get super baked and have marshmallows.
I like it. This is well, there you go. It's turning out to be a great adventure already. Um, LSO, hydroponics, or aeroponics?
Okay, I've done all three, so LSO.
You seemed very confident, no hesitation with that. I like it. We'll dig into that a little bit later. Winter
All right.
Olympics or Summer Olympics?
Oh man, gymnastics. So, winter.
I feel
Is that
you. I
correct?
feel
No,
you.
that's ice
No, that's
skating.
summer.
Summer.
Summer,
Yeah,
summer,
sorry.
summer. Yeah. Look, I was never good at any winter sports, so yeah, I definitely am more of a Summer Olympics girl. Hmm.
Yeah.
Last question.
Hmm.
Poutine or Timbits?
Poutine for sure.
I love a good poutine. I miss that here. I
Oh,
think it's
I
some pretty good
bet.
dough.
It can you get a poutine there? Or is that something? Because like you can go to States and get poutine.
You can't get curd, right? The cheese that really makes
Oh,
it,
okay.
right?
Well
Like
then, yeah, no.
you can get cheesy fries. They make loaded fries, but
Oh yeah, I know that's different.
it's not the same. It's something to do with that curd, that cheese that we use in Canada that you're just
Oh,
like,
and
yeah.
on the East Coast, especially in New Brunswick, where it's bilingual here, the poutine shops everywhere.
I like it. So I'm just so you know,
Every
I'm planning out our adventure. We're starting with poutine. We're doing karaoke and we're ending the night
oh
shoving as
yeah.
many marshmallows in our mouth as possible.
I, yes, I can hook us up.
I like it. Cool. Sign me up. All right, so we're going to dive right into it. I can full on
Okay.
admit, Miss Genevieve, I have a little bit of a fangirl crush on you. I've watched you kind of from afar, creeping you on Instagram and loving what you're doing. But for the
Oh,
listeners who don't know anything about you, how about you give us a brief introduction?
sure thing. So my name is Genevieve Newton, and I am the head grower at Stewart Farms here in St. Stephen, New Brunswick. And I also manage the export. So we are exporting strictly to Australia right now. And before I came over to the East Coast, I've only been here for about, I guess it's going to be 3 years this summer, actually. But I was living in Alberta. I grew up in Saskatchewan, so I've sort of just like moved around, been in a few provinces, love to travel. I'm a hobby grower as well, so I'm growing on a larger scale, but also in my own home, just like doing my own um R&D, I guess we'll call it.
No, I love it.
Hunting and just like always obsessed with genetics. And so I just collect genetics and have since I started growing. And so I'm just always experimenting here. I'm a medical patient also. So weed is my medicine, both for mental health and also I have colitis. So that was kind of what got me on this journey of medicine or looking at weed as medicine versus how I grew up. I'm 46, and so I grew up in a generation where we went to Dare and like marijuana was absolutely the devil's lettuce. And like, even,
Yes.
I raised a child, and even while she was a teenager, which she's 26 now, but I think about 10 years ago, even I was hiding in the garage to like smoke my medicine that I had a prescription for. I don't know. So it's just changed a lot. And I've actively been a part of the process. So
So
as a
you're
medical patient, that's why I wanted to get into the industry, was because I knew the only way to make changes was to get in there myself and just make waves.
no, for sure. And we're the same age. I'm 45. So I
Oh,
remember
neat.
I remember in grade 5 going to the big dare thing and, being in South Texas and
Yeah.
signing your life away saying, I pledge to never do drugs. And yeah, and
I
I'm with
know
you.
the tiny cult for tiny vulnerable people.
Yeah. And like I said, I remember, devil's lettuce and reefer madness and this and that. And yeah, I was just like you. I was hiding out in the garage, keeping it all on the down low, even though I knew I was what's the word I'm searching for? Uh, I, I knew that I was a better version of myself when I was consuming,
Mhm.
right? And
Yeah.
I did. I hid that in the closet for a very, very long time because of stigmas. And then again,
Yeah.
you're a parent, so it's hard being
Yeah.
a mom and then trying to balance that and navigate it when you really just want to be like, no, 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 this works for me. Let's stop the judgment and, mind your own business with it kind of thing. So yeah, like I said, I feel you.
I know. I was a social worker at the time, so before I jumped into weed, I didn't join the weed industry until 2018. Well, really 2019 was like my first real job. And so prior to that, I was working in social work in Edmonton in Alberta. And so even more of a stigma, right? Like I couldn't even like talk to my coworkers about any of this. Like we were confiscating marijuana from teenagers and like doing write-ups for marijuana and like so it's such a different world now 10 years
Yeah,
later.
yeah, for sure. So, what inspired you to start growing cannabis? Because you were saying that you're a bit of a hobby grower. Is that like what kind of, I guess, sparked the whole, yeah, this is what I'm gonna do. I'm gonna start growing this.
um I've always loved working with plants, and so prior to growing marijuana I was like going through this like tiny obsession with growing flowers. And so I owned my own home at the time, and I was just like, we had different kind of fruit trees in the back, and so I was just like experimenting. And then when I found out that I was sick with colitis and started using marijuana for treatment, it got really expensive. And so that was like, like I don't even know. Well, my dad used to grow weed, like he still does actually, but um in my 20s I remember him growing weed. And so I like reached out to him and asked him to like, where to start, like where should I look for seeds or how can I grow this stuff? And so he gave me my first basic tips. I remember writing everything down. I remember him saying like you can go to the grow centers in Edmonton or the hydroponic stores or whatever. And he's like, but don't tell them you're growing weed. Tell them you're growing tomatoes. And I remember going to the first shop and saying that. And I was just like my tomatoes are doing this and this and this. And then finally the guy was like, are you growing weed? And I was like, yes. My dad told me not to tell you this though.
Yeah.
He would be very upset with me right now. And he's like, man, like this whole store is for weed. I was like, okay. He's like, because I could tell you how to grow tomatoes. I was like, no, I know how to grow tomatoes.
Oh, that's
Um,
hilarious. So
so
it's
I
safe
guess
to
that was
say,
kind of it. And then I just took off with it. Like just then I started teaching my dad stuff.
so it's safe to say that you're pro home grow, that you feel like people should have the privilege. I don't want to say privilege, the
Yes.
right to do home grow. All right.
Yes.
Yeah, good deal. I do too. It's
Yeah.
one of those
Yeah.
things
I
that
don't think it needs to be, yeah, completely monitored by the government. The 4 plants that we're allowed here in most provinces in Canada. Like who cares about 4 plants, the medicine that would provide, like mind your business, like the excise taxes and things that they're getting from the recreational market is like absolutely huge. Like,
yeah.
it's not gonna affect that in my head, but
No, I'm with you because I don't believe um supporting home grow really does take that much out of quote unquote
no.
corporate pockets or tax pockets. I feel like it's a very small
So much
percentage of
money,
us that
so much
would
money.
be.
Mhm.
Yeah, like I said, I think it's a very small percentage of us that would be doing home grow, and the vast majority
Yeah.
would still be going to the stores to purchase, right? So, yeah, we'll get there
Yeah, there's
eventually.
not everyone can grow, or not everyone has the resources or the space or the environment. And it's like, you really do have to kind of be obsessed about it to like get some good medicine. Like you see these people online, they want some really good quality weed, like you can't grow that at home most of the time unless you have some fucking top-notch equipment, like and a lot of time on your hands, like not a full-time job, so like the weed in my tent isn't good quality enough for me, but like I wouldn't be exporting it to Australia, like I wouldn't be happy with that quality.
No, for
So
sure. I mean, I like to tell because I would say that I'm uber amateur in growing, uber amateur. And I like to say to people, yeah, it's quote unquote easy to do. That's why it's called a weed. However, it's
yeah.
extremely difficult to produce phenomenal weed.
Yeah.
Like it's hard, but and like what you're saying, you like again, super uber novice at it. I mean, I remember
I have
being out
Gucci
there.
taste for weed.
Yeah, but I remember being out there every day, looking at it, poking it a little, checking this, checking that,
Mhm.
thinking to myself, "Ooh, should I this or should I that or what?" And then this is early 2000s, so I'm real super advanced with my, "Oh, you look a little droopy. Let me just scoop up some fish tank water and give you that," right? Like there's again, yeah, I grew it, but when I tell people, I'm like, oh yeah, I did it with chicken shit and fish tank water. They look at me like, you did what? And I'm like, yeah, man, it was great. Don't worry about it. Like it worked. I thought it was phenomenal.
Well, yeah. Yeah, exactly. When you're just growing it for yourself. But most people it's a chore, right? It's a lot of work.
It is. It is. Um, do you have any like growing or breeding heroes?
Yes, I sure do. Kevin Jodrey out in California is like I've been I've looked up to him for longer than I've known him. He is my mentor now, somehow, some way. Creator blessed me with him as my mentor for the last 3 years, and I'm so blessed. And like, he's like a brother now. So like, I look up to him. I look up to the empire that he's built and how he's done it in such a kind way. The industry can be so harsh sometimes and so backstabby and so shady, and people promise you shit and they don't follow through. And it's an epidemic. And Kevin Jodrey is a man that stands by his word and like follows through with shit. And it's just like, like it speaks for himself. And he offers free education, free teaching. Like, so he's definitely my main guy that I look up to. And then, just there's some really fierce females in the space, like if I just stick to growing, there's many Canadian females in small micro facilities that are growing weed. Like I look up to those people because it's not easy to be running your own business and growing weed. There's some big players out in the States like Rad Reefer and I don't know why I can't think of her name right now. There's just a couple of really like top players that I've just looked up to for the last probably like, I don't know, 6 or 8 years, just because they're promoting good quality stuff. They kind of stick to their word. They don't, promote, shit just to, how some people kind of sell their soul or you see people change, I guess. Money changes people, corporate stuff changes people, people become in this like survivor mode, and so it changes people. It affects decisions that are made, and so the people I look up to are the ones that stay strong in their ethics when things are tough. And
Yeah,
so there's just so many unknown heroes, as
yeah, for sure.
colleagues.
It's interesting because it's one of those things, right? I'm a big person about actions, right? Words to
Yeah.
me are just kind of who you fantasize you are. However, actions
Yeah.
always speak louder than words. Um, do you find that for the most part, I mean, yes, there's going to be toxicity, I guess, in any type of industry that you're in, no matter what it is. But do you find for the most part that people kind of welcomed you in? Because I was really lucky. Like when I was younger and I was asking questions, again, early 2000s, late 90s, I was very welcomed into the little community of growers that I was lucky to be a part of. And even though I asked some really fucking stupid questions, they never made me feel stupid. And so I'm wondering, do you for
Mhm.
the most part feel like the community that you're building or that they're welcoming you in, or is it still kind of an uphill battle?
I would say for me personally, there's two different worlds that I coexist in. And so for me, never really having been in cannabis, not growing cannabis, like me in 2016, when I didn't know anything, couldn't find anything even online back then. It was really slim to find people who would share their information. I found a forum of men and a couple women. They were all mostly older than me, and they were just so willing to share information and so welcoming. And it was my first experience with a cannabis community because all of my immediate community or support people or whatever was like I had been sober from drugs and alcohol for 4 years before I sort of jumped into this community. And so I had that sort of sober community that's like, oh, weed's bad. And then the community I had prior to that was like just drunks. So it was like I was rebuilding at that point. It was just like it all kind of crashed together at the same time. And so when I was living in Edmonton and I was learning how to grow weed, I was living in the city. I didn't really have any weed friends except for, so I joined the forum online. And then that led me to Instagram where I met more local people. And I found out there's this whole underground cannabis community that I didn't even know about. And I now some of my family members, like, chosen family or whatever, like my best friends that I have met were people that welcomed me in this community. And then so the other side of that, and those people are all still very welcoming, and that's why I give back so much. So on the outside of work and corporate, I mentor people for free. I answer questions for free all day long in my Instagram. I never turn anyone away. And it's because it was given to me like that. And so I feel like I have to push that forward. And that's how we perpetuate that community vibe, right? Or keep that culture. I find in corporate cannabis or legal, no matter where you go, and I am in the best spot, it's all a lot harder and not as welcoming and way more broskies and way more dudes in general, just in the growing capacity, right? There's many, many, many women in cannabis. Don't get me wrong, tons, and they're coming in all the time. But in cultivation or irrigation, which were my two avenues, is predominantly men still. Like, I don't even know my guess would be 5% women. So it's cool when you can run into women. But so I wouldn't say these men have been very welcoming. I'd say they put up with me, or like I'm just like a side ornament or whatever. Like I wouldn't say anyone's ever really listened to me or respected me, or besides this team that I have now. So in that way, it's been an uphill battle, and it continues to be an uphill battle. So events and all the things that go on within the industry. I say it in all my podcasts. I don't know how to make it sound nicer, but I don't want to say it's nice if it's not nice.
No, because I'm with you.
So yeah, events are eye-opening. You can go to these events and they're getting better, I'd say, but they're still very alcohol fueled. There's still a lot of people abusing harder drugs, and like there's a lot of really hard mental health and addiction going on, and it's very triggering, I guess, for sometimes for people that are like actively in recovery and have worked really hard. And so I guess they're and minorities too. Like I'm Métis, so I'm half Native. And so I don't know, I don't feel it's represented as well as it could be in the legal industry. And so most of the time on the podcast, I do shout outs for if there's any micro facilities that are indigenous owned or indigenous run, or anyone that's looking for help in the legal industry, to seek me out and let's collaborate. But yeah, I don't know. There's just a lot of things that can be improved.
No, I gotta agree with you. Like, I feel like your observations are pretty spot on in the sense that, I'm with you. I feel like, when I was younger and I was learning, that information was freely shared with me. And I think to myself now, these are probably people that would be, in their 70s, maybe 80s now,
Mm-hmm.
right? But they
Mm-hmm.
were my age, late 30s, early 40s when they were very
Yeah,
giving with their
experimenting,
information. Yeah. And
breeding.
yeah, and I feel that
Yeah.
because I experienced an environment that was so educational and so welcoming that I feel like I've got to share that as well. I feel like I gotta pass that on. But as I dance
Yeah.
around where I kind of fit within the industry, I'm with you. There's not a lot of girls. I feel like for the most part, I am somewhat welcome in. But the flip to that is I've definitely run up against broski behavior. I've definitely run up
I don't
against,
know what else to call it.
no,
Yeah,
you're
I
right. And I
sometimes call it
paused.
chads or brads.
Yeah,
Then
like I
I feel
paused.
bad for the good chads and brads.
Yeah, I paused to think about it. And I'm like, no, but that is,
Yeah,
it's
I
the
know.
bro,
It
right?
exists.
It's not a
There's a
good
lot of
old
white
boys.
privilege. There's a lot of
It's,
masculinity, like toxic masculinity, really
yeah.
like toxic male sales vibe, masculinity, rapey even. And I don't throw that word around, but these events, like I've never experienced anything. I haven't, none of my friends have, but like there's a salty sort of vibe. And, I'm not making that up. I'm very intuitive.
No, again, I would say that you're
Unsafe.
spot
Let's
on.
say unsafe. I go home to my hotel at 9 p.m. or like back home. You just don't stay out and party with
Like I said,
unsafe people.
I would say that your observations are fairly spot on, right? And it's sad to know that it's happening kind of across the board though, right? Like it's not kind of isolated, if you will, like, oh, it only happens over here kind of thing, or it only happens over there at this one
Yeah.
event, right? It's not, it's kind of you know, we could do better as an industry kind of thing.
International affair. Say it's worse in the States, but I don't know that for sure. This is the experiences that I've heard from friends or whatever. And then Australia, right? Like, everyone's got their own industry
Yeah, and it is,
and
it's
their
sad.
similarities.
Yeah, I'm with you. It's a bit sad. Um, what would you say is the most common, I guess, educational issue you see kind of as because you're in the industry and it's hard. I know like here it's hard to educate because you can't advertise, you can't this, you can't even say plant medicine. But in
Right.
Canada, we're a little bit, I guess, looser with that information. But what would you say would be kind of like the most common educational issue you see with like the average consumer?
Um, I think a lot of the education from this would be my opinion, obviously, but um the information that's being given to the consumer is mostly going to come from the bud tender, I would think. And so the bud tenders are being fed information, I think, from like little cards that come in the master case boxes for like, and those are all created by each LP. So here in Canada, you can't use medical claims or anything like that either. So words can become tricky, right? So the biggest fail is how sales and marketing is getting in the way of educating consumers properly about the real science of cannabis versus what's going to sell our brand, I guess. So I guess that's a vague response, but I don't know, there needs to be more, bud tender. I don't know. I don't know if you'd have to take a sort of like educational course that's science based, like as a grower, in the production cannabis production course that I took, like you had to take a course on Canadian legislation and you had to take a course on um like good production practices and like science of cannabis and botany, just like basic stuff. But I think if more bud tenders maybe had that education, like wow, like that gets out to the consumers, and then there'd be less like worrying about high THC versus what's actually going to work for me.
Yeah,
Or
I
like using words like sativa and indica improperly, like they don't even know. I go into retail stores and I'm just like appalled sometimes by their education. Like, oh man, it's like I don't correct them. I just get out.
which is all you can do, right? When they're talking to you and you're
Yeah,
like,
like
no, buddy, you're a little bit just a snoochy booch
yeah, like
off
that's
what you're saying.
uh bonjour, and that's the first thing is sativa or indica. It's like, nah, neither. Just then to yell at them. But
You're
it's
like,
not their
and
fault.
it's
So
true.
they're not being educated properly or being made to take an educational course. I don't know. It's not an entry level position in my head. So they should get paid more as well, if we're going to talk about it all, because they do get paid poorly. They get paid entry level salaries, and they're more important than that. They're educators. So, but they need the proper education.
Yeah, right. We don't have bud tenders here. So it's an interesting like with the
Ooh,
medical.
pharmacies, right? And
Ye-
doctors.
Yeah, but even like talking, so we'll talk candidly about the medicinal system, right? It's hard because here you've got a lot of clinics that are kind of what I like to call burn and turn, and they talk to you for maybe 10 minutes, and it's like,
Yeah.
well, first of all, there's no way that you can possibly know my proper medical history or what's going on with me or why I'm making this appointment. They don't really educate you. I've literally had doctors tell me things like, oh, you should try product X. And when I'm like, why? They're like, oh, everybody likes it and you're going to like it too. So I'm like, for the record, that I did not like that product at all whatsoever. But the point is that where does that onus
Mhm.
fall, right? Like, do the companies that are if you will, growing the flowers, are you guys supposed to be educating more of the doctors, or is it the doctors who are supposed to be educating more of the patients, or even the pharmacy? But then I think about my pharmacy, they're balls to the wall every time I go in there. And I'm sure if I wanted, I could book a time to talk to them. But is it the pharmacist who needs to be educating me? Like there's so many gaps in the system.
Yeah, there's so many gaps, but there's also so many points of contact where each one of those people should be responsible for educating you. Like it's not the consumer's fault that everybody's, overworked, or they have too many patients, or, that kind of thing. It's not your fault or the consumer's fault. Like, so they should still be getting that education somehow. And I know that's where the marketing kiboshes come in, because then you can't put it on your websites and stuff like that. At least what you want to, what you can say in person, right? Because they can tell you not to say certain things. And then a good, bud tender or educator will still tell you the things that are true, or even the observational data, right?
Yeah, like I
So
said,
it's tough.
yeah, it is. It's interesting because there's a lot of information out there. And, you touched on it briefly about how, THC wouldn't matter if you knew that there were other things that worked for you. And how do you how do you have those types of conversations with people when they reach out to you? Because I sometimes feel like a broken record because I'm always like, no, dude, let the THC go and
Mhm.
start, narrowing in on terpenes and looking at other things that are, holistic, a part of the whole, and then piecing it together like that because you'll have better outcomes. And I try to, you know, phrase it in such a way that, you'll have better outcomes if you let go of THC. How do you have these
Yeah.
conversations with people when they reach out to you?
Um, I I similarly talk about terpenes and explain it to everyone, like, the whole entourage effect and a distillate versus if you have somebody that's experienced smoking distillate versus or isolate, one molecule versus the hundreds that go into like full spectrum, then sometimes people just sort of um get it, I guess, if you can make it relate to them. But yeah, I basically just tell people about, some of the more popular terpenes and how they have an effect. And what I've seen as a grower, I get privy to getting analysis on every single thing that I grow. And so I get a whole terpene analysis. And I have Ganjier training. And so all throughout Ganjier training, it's like teaching you about the different chemical compositions and what the trends that they're seeing between these strains and these terpenes, like how they affect different conditions. And so just with that different knowledge, and then my own actual experience, because I'm a daily consumer and I do so much experimenting myself, that I can just sort of lead people through it, I guess. Balanced is what I prefer 100% all the time. Like I get way more medicated or high. The euphoria that everyone's after, that kind of feeling, you're going to get that more from a one-to-one that really works with your system versus a high THC product or, I don't know. It's just amazing how science works.
Do you have a
And it's
favorite
not even the terpenes and the molecules and all of that, it's the esters and the fatty acids and the alcohols and the sugar content. Like every single cultivar, every single genetic has a different chemical composition. So people can just look at it like it's a chemistry thing, it's a chemical composition. So you're basically just farming drugs. So we're farming the THC, right? Everything is in those crystals. You can show people on the microscope. When I have people come in and do tours, you show them on the microscope. Look at those big bulbous glandular, you know, beautiful trichomes. That has all the drugs in it, like everything. It's amazing. It's like a whole universe where all the cannabinoids and the fatty acids and the terpenes and everything just exist in there. It's really the most chemically complex plant in the kingdom, I believe.
It's fascinating, like when you really stop to think about it, like what's all in that little head of a trichome, right? And that they do, those plants, as they start off with little tiny little sprouts, they have little tiny trichomes going, like even at
Yeah,
the very,
there's
very
different
start.
kinds of little hairs that they have. People
Yeah.
used to tell me as a medical, when I just was growing at home, making all my stuff and whipping up plant medicine. I used to make this fresh harvest. I defoliate all the fan leaves from my tent and get like a huge batch of fresh defoliated fan leaves, and even midway through flower, and still I'd soak them in the coconut butter and it would infuse into the coconut butter, and it had this real like green taste that not a lot of people like, but I liked. And then I cooked them in brownies, and those things would get you high. People would say like, no, there's no trichomes on plant leaves. Like you can very much see them even with the naked eye.
You can for
Like that's a
sure.
broski. Yeah, that would be a broski being like, no, that's not true. And it's like, but no, I can see it with my own eyes. Stop gaslighting me. Yeah.
You're like, no, no, it's right there. I see it. Um, do you have a
Yeah,
favorite
I got high from it, dude. A
Yeah.
favorite terpene.
Yeah. Do you have a favorite
Oh, it's
terpene?
so hard. It's a tie between terpenoline and limonene. So limonene mixed with terpenoline is what we call Britney's frozen lemons. So if you like that smell, like it's just the most unreal. Daily grape is something else, but Britney's frozen lemons is the most unique terpenoline rich with a punch of limonene. Like it just jacks you up,
I am a huge
gets you
fan.
going.
Yeah, it's my go-to terpene. Terpinolene is absolutely my
I knew this
jam.
about you already.
Yeah,
Yeah, we
it
have it in
is.
common. I love it.
Yeah, and it's one of those things that I won't say 100% of the time, but the vast majority of the time, if it's the dominant terpene in something, yeah, if I open that jar and it jumps out and grabs me, I'm like a kid in the candy
Yeah.
store. I'm giddy. I'm like, this is gonna be fabulous. Yeah,
There's a strain out here. Figure is the licensed producer. There are a couple of female growers out there, a couple of female head growers. I worked with them briefly. We did a little partnership. And they grow this like coastal sage, I think it's called, and it's so high in terpenoline. It's also super amazing.
yeah. Perhaps
There's
we'll add.
certain ones that just stick out. Anything that's called sage, I think, I've
Yeah,
noticed anyways, it's a nice combo usually.
I do like it. I like it also when it gets mixed with why am I drawing a blank? The minty terpene. What is that? Oh Jesus. It's on the tip of my tongue. Uh it's okay. I'll circle back to it. But point is it's the
Hard to guess
minty
it from.
one. It's a minty one. Shit. I can't
I'm
believe
like
I've drawn
drawing a
a
blank. I'm thinking of beta carotene, but that's
no,
pepper. Linalool is like
no,
lavender, and then
no, it's minty. Whatever. It's a minty one.
like the
And
outliers too. Osmine
there you go.
is
Awesome. Awesome. That's it. That's it.
is that
That is
it?
it. Yeah,
Okay.
because
That's an outlier, so you don't see that very often.
you don't. And
That
I've
one is Royal Kush is that's the top terpene in Royal Kush. That's why it's an outlier. That's why people love it, and it's got high medical value.
Yeah, like I said, I've narrowed it down that when those two terpenes are together, yeah, that is my jam. It's got nothing to do with THC percentage, whether it's an indica, a sativa, none of that.
Yeah.
If those two terpenes are
It's how the
together,
chemistry. Yeah, it's how it's affecting your body. I learned so much recently. I went to Halifax for this like science presentation. These two female scientists from America, from the United States, doctors, and they're doing a lot of cannabis research. So my Abby Shields and Riley Kirk, and
yes, yes,
yeah,
I saw a little bit of that because I kind
doctors.
of yeah, I was to say I follow all three of you guys on Instagram, and so I saw a little bit of that, and I was super jealous because like Riley's got some amazing little reels out there on Instagram.
Oh man, they're so educational. Talk about like people to look up to. It's just they're like handing out facts all day long on, and they're using the platforms that everyone's watching, right? Like TikTok and Instagram, and like making it work for, they're perpetuating education and real education in cannabis. They're talking about stuff that no one talks about because it's still illegal, driving and smoking cannabis, being pregnant and smoking cannabis. Like they're touching on and they're digging in and doing that research. And so it's just cool. It's cool stuff. Stuff that affects daily users, which we've been sort of left out.
Yeah, they are. Like those two girls are amazing with what, and they do. They present their information in such a fashion that it's very digestible. Like it all makes
Yeah,
sense.
digestible. Yeah. Layman terms, they don't bore you.
Yeah, for sure. We should totally, I'll drop their Instagram handles in the show notes
Yeah.
because yeah, they're fabulous. Those girls are fabulous. Um, have you ever had like kind of a like a eureka moment when you were experimenting with kind of different type of growing methods? Because you did a little bit of, I guess, home growing stuff before you jumped into larger scale because it's a lot harder to experiment on a larger scale. Have you had
Right.
anything that was kind of like a eureka moment that you were like, shit, yeah, this works, and I totally have to take it, to that next level?
Yeah, there's definitely things that I've brought from like the home garden into like at scale. We used to have a couple scientists on staff. We've really tightened up the reins with team members, but like we've gotten some funding for different science projects, and we used to be aquaponics. We're not anymore. We're living soil, but so I've been lucky enough to be able to bring some things in and like, really follow the science or see if anything is affected. So nothing really exciting, but exciting to me. So it's like getting past like myth or true story, right? Like people who are out there piercing their stalks and causing high stress at the end of flower, um, super cropping, stuff like that. I've done a lot of different experiments and tested on our in-house Gemser, if it's changed the THC value, like to increase. That's the bro science, is that doing high stress things to your plants late in flower or at certain periods in flower, like will create THC increase, and that's false, at least in the experimenting that I've done.
I love that you say that because that's a huge, well, yeah, it's a huge myth.
Because
I,
I was like,
I,
this works, but
yeah.
no, like super cropping, for example, I've experimented on that several times in different stages of flower, and it is useful for training. It is useful for creating bigger, um, stronger stems to be able to hold up bigger buds. But I've tested both, I've experimented and done and followed and logged and had a scientist involved, to track it, that there was no yield increases, nor was there any THC increases that we saw. I didn't get a full analysis, but you can test THC, and that's what everyone thinks the high stress does. So watering them with cold water at the end, that type of stuff, just like really testing the bro science, like, nah. But what does increase THC, what does make a difference is lights. And so over the last year, I've been testing 3 different brands of lights. And so I know which ones are the bbest lights.
So do you
I
use like a combination? Are you, I guess I'm making a bold assumption here, thinking about videos that I've stories I've watched. You guys are all artificial light, correct? You're not a
Yeah,
combination
we're
of,
completely indoor controlled
yeah.
environment. Yeah, it is living soil, and I replicate the outdoors as much as possible, including senescence, which is the end of life. I follow the last 2 weeks where we bring down the lights, bring down the temperature, just like stimulate fall.
Do you use different color spectrums towards the end? Because I have
We
a friend that
we
swear like
Though that probably does work. I have not done any experimenting in that. I could. I have some lights that if I get the proper control system, I can control all the different spectrums. So what I've learned is red spectrum is really good at beginning propagation, and then in flower, but too much red can also cause stress on the plant, and I've seen bleach tops because of too much red in
oh,
flower.
okay, yeah, yeah, yeah. Because I had a friend who is, bless his heart, but he was like, I'm gonna basically kill it with light. And he was very into the red. And it's interesting that you were talking about bleaching out the tops because his tops were bleached
Yeah.
out. And he was like,
Yeah,
I
that's a
don't
sign of stress.
understand.
Then
Yeah.
you're at higher risk for mold. It doesn't affect your cannabis in the way that it doesn't smoke. It's just an albino basically, but it's stripped the the chlorophyll from the plant. So everything's stripped, the color's all stripped from it. And so it just starts to die basically.
Yeah, and like I didn't know what was going on, and he was asking me, and I was like, "Bless your heart, babe." I'm like, "I don't know. I've only ever grown with the sunlight, so I I can't really help you with red or blue light or how many hours of this or how many hours of that." I'm like, I just know when Mother Nature shortens her days, I go into flower, you know? But that's interesting that you've said.
Yeah, nothing beats the sunlight. Yeah, the sun is the most powerful. I have a light meter, a really good one that I use at work, and I've used it outside on the sun, and the sun is the most powerful light out there by far. Like, so
Yeah, sun's best if you can get it, right? For sure. For sure. But again, it's hard to be consistent
Not
when
everyone
you
has the season though. That
Yeah, well, I was going to say it's hard to be consistent when you're using just the sunlight because now all of a sudden, if you go through a rainy season where there's more rainy overcast days, then all of a sudden it starts to affect because you had less hours of sunshine. So it's very hard to consistently produce outdoors. Whereas, again, with
yeah,
the advantage of indoors is yeah, you can control a lot of that. So it's easier to mitigate some of
yeah,
those risks, right?
absolutely. Yeah,
Um,
absolutely. That's why, yeah, like I love growing outdoors. I love outdoor weed, but indoor weed in a controlled environment, organically grown, is just more superior. It's for my palate. People have different palates. So like people in California might disagree, and I know just from learning Ganji teachings is they like a nice long cure too, like 6 months, which is way different than what we do. So the nugs that are, grown in California, a lot of them are grown outside or like using, sunlight and LEDs, but like, without as much control as indoor. And like weed that's grown outside is just more robust. It's thicker with fat, like it's just a different texture, different taste even. And that's what a lot of people they want. It's the terroir. It's like wine, so they want like, this is grown in the Appalachian Mountains terroir, like, or the St. Stephen, New Brunswick terroir.
Watered with glacier water, fresh off of the
Yeah,
Rocky Mountains. Yeah, yeah. No, I
I
know.
create the terroir inside. And so
It's
I'm
true.
sure some of that weed is delicious and I just haven't tried it, but like just from what I've tried from outdoor versus indoor, I prefer indoor.
I think for me, the only real difference that I've noticed is that I feel like flowers that are grown outdoors, that the effects just kind of hang with you just a touch longer. I find that
Okay.
flowers that are grown indoor tend to come on a touch quicker, but also tend to dissipate quicker. And I don't know
You
if
know why
that's
that is?
no,
My
I'm all
theory on
ears.
that, I just thought of it, but I'm pretty sure, is a lot of indoor weed is grown on a schedule. And so a lot of weed is harvested too soon. And so you're going to get a speedier, quicker effect versus, which can be fixed in a longer cure depending, but most facilities are like cut, dry, out, cut, dry, out, cut, dry, out. Like you're going to get that speeder effect where like an outdoor grow I'm just thinking here, it's like, that's you're waiting for the whole thing to be done and you're checking the trichomes and there's times I'm sure they have to harvest too soon, but it's once a year, so there's no schedule. There's no CEO up your butt asking about your schedules.
Yeah, no, like now that you're
They know
saying
the
it,
schedule.
yeah,
I don't know. It's just a thought. Well, ask a scientist.
as you're saying it, that makes total sense because, again, like with my friend asking questions about, what's going on with his plants and my response going, I don't know. I just do it with the sun. And when Mother Nature tells me it's time to harvest, it's time to
Mother
harvest kind of
Nature.
thing. Yeah, you're right.
Yeah,
Because
and
there was
nature
no
knows.
there was no schedule like outdoors. You just went with it, right? Whatever it gave you is what you rolled with. Um, do you guys have an integrated pest management strategy that you use? Because you're using LSO,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah, we use pests. No, we use nice pests. So I buy my biological predators from Copert, which is just a brand out here. There's lots, but they're my favorite. Paul's my guy, and he just hooks me up with anything that I might need. He's taught me a lot about bugs, and I've never really wanted to like hang out with the bugs, but we have so we use different kinds of things. We have the Aureus strip eaters and they fly around, and I've made a few videos where they'll like a bird, like I'm the princess of the bugs. Like I go into the room and I'm like, come to me, my friends, when there's fresh Aureus, and they want to play. My gloves blue, and so they'll fly to it, and then I can, you know play with it. We use Swarovski mites too for thrips. So that's all we have. And most farms have like, either a fungus gnat that they want to keep at bay, or a thrip is pretty common pest for a facility to have. And so I don't see any of the thrips or any of the damage or gnats or anything like that because we use this biological integrated pest management system. And so every 2 weeks, I have these predators delivered to the farm, and me and the guys go and put them all out on the plants and let them do their thing.
I love it. The only thing I've ever used is ladybugs.
Ladybugs, yeah, they're not used here because all the all the predators we use are tiny, tiny, tiny. Like you can see them with the naked eye, but ladybugs are too big. And so you wouldn't want to accidentally open up one of your jars of weed and find a dead ladybug.
Touche. Somebody
No.
would get on Reddit and post those pictures
Oh,
and
you're
shame you like
done.
nobody's
Done.
business.
But like it's a popular IPM, right? And I don't see a problem with it. I used to throw them into my tent when I find them. They eat hundreds of aphids a day. And so that is that's the security you want, but you got to
Yeah.
think about the product afterwards too. So the certain little things that we use, you wouldn't see them.
Okay. Like I said, I've only ever used ladybugs, but that would make sense, right? To use smaller kind of, and if you're changing them out, if you will, every 2 weeks, that's a pretty solid system and how you're managing to keep other
Yeah,
things at
they
bay.
die off pretty quick. That's the thing, is they starve, right? Which is what you want. You want
Hmm.
them to starve.
Yeah. Well, if they're starving, it means there's no pests in there for sure.
Exactly.
Yeah, exactly.
Exactly. But
Eh,
yeah, no sprays. We don't spray anything on the plants at all. Like it's no pesticides, no sprays. Within Canada, Health Canada, the regulations are pretty fierce and tight, which is good, especially for medical, right? It's across the board rec or medical, but like you want to have tight regulations on things like pesticide use, and so there's nothing.
So that would be your GMP stuff, right? Your good manufacturing practices.
That's GPP, so every facility has to practice that. But yeah, we're beyond GPPs, or we're GMP, and so yeah, there's tighter regulations, even tighter. We just got recertified too. Woo! It was
Congratulations.
intense. Yeah,
Oh,
like
I bet.
it's intense. Audits are always intense, but yeah.
Yeah. So did you guys have to do that because you're exporting here to Australia? And that was kind of one of the big changes, I guess, I'm going to say a few months ago, but it was probably a longer than that that they decided no, that it's
Yeah,
got to be
last year.
GMP.
Yeah,
Yeah.
last summer. Yeah. Yeah, exactly. Exactly.
Um, what are your thoughts around irradiation and like its effects on your end product as far as like I guess taste and effects? Because people here
Ooh.
get very knickers in a wad about it. And there's a huge part of me coming from Canada that's like, yo, playa, all my fruit and veg got hit with something before it hit my border. Like I was getting avocados from Mexico. There's no way they didn't
Oh
zap
yeah,
that with something.
everything's
Yeah. And so I don't
irradiated.
know if it's just,
I know people don't understand. That's a part. Yeah, and we need to have some more consumer education on irradiation. So I recently did a science experiment, because most of the weed that I export does not need to be irradiated. We pass the threshold in for the TGA, which is actually really, really low, much lower than Canada. So most people do irradiate just to avoid risk. We test and then decide if we're gonna e-beam. So I recently did where I took an analysis of a lot, and then it was e-beamed, and then took an analysis with terpenes, because it's terpenes that everyone thinks is affected, right? Like that's mostly what the buzz is about, right? So I have both analysis, and the amount of terpenes, it went from like 2.5 to like 2.2. So it did lose some of the terpenes, but it's because it dries it out so much. And so some of those terpenes are less are more volatile, sorry. Like limonene is a really volatile terpene, and limonene is the top terpene of the daily grape, and it was barely affected by the e-beam. So it's different, I guess, what type of sterilization you're using, because it's cheaper to use like a heavier dose of gamma radiation versus e-beam, which is a lot nicer. But it also depends on how dirty your weed is before it gets irradiated. So if you are already like on the verge of failing microbials, or most places actually fail microbials, like we're talking hydroponics that is supposed to be sterile, like most places irradiate here in Canada because they fail. So we're proud to like pass every single time in Canada and a lot of times in Australia where we don't have to use this. But I've seen the effects. So you try it before, because we also have partners that we work with too. So it's not just the weed that we grow at the farm, it's also these partners growing the weed. And some of them have failed for microbial. So we have to get it irradiated. And then you taste it before and you taste it afterwards. And I don't personally notice an effect, but I guess the only effect is it's drier. So it depends. I've been able to get in a batch irradiated or e-beamed, bring it back to the facility, and then cure it. So keep burping it for like, say, a week. I think that's how long I did it. And I was able to cure the moisture back in it. And I don't have an analysis of that, but just like observational data from doing sensory. It was like back to the same aroma, back to the, it came back. So it matters how you take care of your weed after it's been processed or sterilized.
Yeah, for sure.
That's
Like,
what I noticed. And I have very minimal experience with irradiation. We've only had to start, doing it sometimes since July 31st last year.
what would be like your top tip to somebody when it comes to storing their flower?
Um, Top tip, and I've worked in a lot of facilities, is to be as on top of your storage room as you are with your live plant rooms and your dry room. We keep our stored product at the same environment as my cannabis that's curing, my cannabis that's drying. So it's always kept at 16 degrees or 60, and then between 55 and 60 degrees or RH, sorry, percent.
That's
Always
interesting.
100%. And it does, the product lasts way longer if you take good care of it. Most storage facilities that I've been in, different facilities, it's like 45. That's where you're going wrong right away. You need to keep it at a good weed humidity.
That's like I said, that's interesting that you keep it the same in all your rooms, that you don't change it. Because I do know that some facilities change it based off of what
Yeah.
room they're in.
That'll degrade the chemistry, not just terpenes, but the THC. Um, yeah, like we keep it so as soon as the weed comes down in, it's 16 degrees in the room at harvest, it goes into the dry room for 2 weeks. It's 16 degrees in there, same humidity, 60. We keep it there, keep a good eye. And then when it goes into trimming, it's 60 and 16 in there. It goes back into the dry room every single night. It's getting cured, it's burped. Like I personally cure everything. And then, every time it's being processed, it's in that same environment. So if you can keep it consistent like that, you're just going to have way better quality product at the end.
No,
Because
that
once you
makes
start packaging it, that's where it's getting handled by, things are more out of your control. That's where you're losing quality, basically. So you want it to be almost perfect right till you get it to that last point of processing, and then you want to pick the perfect processing team to make sure that everyone's gentle the whole way through, because you lose so much.
um correct me if I'm wrong, but aren't you guys mostly fully integrated as far as you guys package what you're selling it and sending it here? It's not getting repackaged here, is it?
No, no. Everything is packaged over here first and then exported to you. It stays in customs until they do the doot. And then it gets released to our client, and then he dispenses it to the pharmacies. I believe that's how it works when it gets over there.
Yeah, no,
And a
I
lot of times our product is, on pre-order, like the Britney's frozen lemon, for example, right? Because it's the last batch is coming. Australia has my second last batch, which is amazing. I cured it longer this time. It's just like so good. We're already getting good reviews. And then the next very last, because we had to discontinue the Britneys to have more production for grape. So it's like special.
I'm super excited because I've had a script for
Our
it for a while.
Britney's famous.
I was gonna say I've had a script for it for
Yeah,
a while,
it's
and I just
she's just really laborious.
yeah.
Yeah, it's a
So
hard one to grow. We can't like we just haven't found a partner that can do as good of a job as we do at our farm, and we're just like a really small space. My farm is only 2,000 square feet of production, so it's not a lot.
so this batch that's coming in right now, that's the last of Brittany.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, that does make me sad. Is there any indication of what you're working on next that you can tell us about?
Yes, I am working on a nice skunky banana genetic right now. I'm dialing it in.
Banana, you lost me. I was like, no, not banana.
Like a true banana. Genevieve Newton would not say she has a grape if she didn't have a grape. Jenny would not say she has a banana if she doesn't have a banana. It's like ripe bananas and skunk, like, and the skunk on it is uh it's like when I remember smoking weed in high school. Like it's cushy or Afghani or so
Earthy?
that would be specifically for Australia.
Mm,
Yeah.
all right, well, I'll keep my eyes peeled.
Little small batch coming up the line, hopefully soon. Yeah, I want to dial that one in this year. So that's why we RIP Brittany, because I have something better coming.
Oh, see,
And
now you're putting
I
that.
hunted this one when we did the big pheno hunt for the daily grape. And so this one was actually my favorite. So I love the Queen Daily Grape. I love her so much. She's like my beautiful sweetie. But this one that I am working on right now has been harder to dial in at scale. Just it's a huge plant. So it's like just trying to contain it, right? So yeah, you've seen me growing it. It's the banana pudding tane. So um
Okay,
hopefully
okay.
in 6 months. Hopefully in 6 months. I'll give you a heads up for sure so that you can get in line wherever it'll get dropped or whatever. Who knows how that goes down. I just grow the stuff and hype it up and
I'm excited. I mean,
but
like I said,
I'm never lying. Yeah, my hypes
like
are good.
like I said, I don't know about bananas. Bananas are, I joke and I call those the devil's food. I've never been a big fan of bananas, but if
I'm
the, if
allergic
it
to bananas, actually. Fun fact.
are you, girl, what
Yeah,
are you doing a banana cultivar then?
I know it's like my way of having bananas.
I like it though. Like I said, I'm there's a part of me that was like, no, not gonna happen. But now I'm not gonna lie, you have sparked my interest a
It's
little
like
bit on it.
skunk with a boop of banana. There you go. It's
I
barely
like it.
banana. Rename
Skunk
it
with the
barely
boot.
banana.
I love it though. I love it. Oh, all right. I feel like we've covered all sorts of topics. We've been all over the place.
Yeah,
Um,
this is fun.
yeah, I like to kind of wrap all of my podcasts up with something educational. So, like I said, I know we've covered a lot of topics, but do you have one tip or one educational tidbit of information that we could leave the listeners with?
So like a tip for growing, like the home grower maybe?
Yeah, go for it. Anything that
Hmm.
you want to share.
Well, I think I kind of said it earlier is I think my biggest tip I can share as a hobby grower, as a medical grower, as a large scale grower, less is more and keep it simple. Honestly, like that's kind of what I said earlier. And it's like don't buy into the hype of these sales guys. Like, talk to people you trust, try things and decide for yourself. Don't just do things because someone says that this works and this works, like you don't need all the pizzazz. I could tell you how to grow so cheap, so easy. There's so many ways to grow, but it's best to just just keep getting better each time. You don't need to, you know, do all the things at once.
I agree. I think that's excellent advice, right? Master it with one plant, two plants before you're like, I got this. Let's do 20.
Yeah, then do 20. Do 2, 4, 20.
Yeah, exactly. Start small and then scale up once you've mastered it in a small setting for sure. Woo. Genevieve, it was an absolute pleasure talking to you this morning. I greatly, or I guess this evening for you in Canada.
Yeah, this is love this. Yeah,
Uh,
I'm used to this. Yeah.
yeah, like I said, I greatly appreciate you sitting down and chit-chatting with me. It was an absolute pleasure, and I am going to hold you to that girls' night out that we were talking about at the beginning.
Right. For sure. We have some wicked Airbnbs in this area, so you got to come see the East Coast. St. Stephen, fun fact, is just like a little hub, and like it's on the border of Maine. It's 5 hours to PEI. It's 5 hours to Halifax, Nova Scotia. You could take a ferry over to Newfoundland if you want. You can get to Montreal in 7 hours. Like, it's a good spot to land if you're wanting to see the east side.
I don't know, girl, you're selling it pretty good. I think I probably do need
I
to come
know.
out there to the East Coast for sure. And that's a wrap. Be sure to hit the show notes for more information about things we talked about on today's episode, including where to find Genevieve. Until we meet again, friends, thank you for taking time out of your busy schedule to listen. And remember, when we work hard for something we don't believe in, it's called stress. When we work hard for something we love, it's called passion.